Wait, what is this shit?
Not safe for f***ing worker placement podcast.
I flipped the board. I despise that game. Oh, that sounds... Oh, wait. Hello and welcome to the 28th episode of the Not Safe for Worker Placement Podcast, a board game podcast brought to you by me, Leandra.
And me, Ben.
We're married and we're here to talk shit about board games.
That's right. Back from the grave. Our last episode was the Halloween episode. And before that, it was about a month and a half since we've recorded. So
it's been a little busy.
It has been a proverbial hot minute.
Whew.
So since we last talked to you together, we have released our annual Halloween episode. We had Jamie Stegmeyer and Theo, the Geeky Gamer guy, and Steve from the Secret Cabal, all on there. It was a fun little shortest episode we've ever put out because I was doing it all by myself, and I literally did it on Halloween, All Hallows Eve. And we got that out. And then took a slight breather and immediately started working on our video channel for the first time because we were up against a bit of a deadline there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were going out of town, so we had to film some stuff real fast. One of the things you do, like, okay, so here's a little behind the scenes thing. If you get a review game from certain companies are just like, they'll just give you something and be like, if you want to do something with it, do it. Other companies are like, if you want to receive review copies, then we have to have some kind of guarantee that you're going to make some sort of significant content with the thing, right? You know, whether it be a podcast or videos or whatever it is that you do, they want to know that within a certain time period, you're going to actually do that thing, and then they're not just giving you games for free for nothing. So we don't get very many, so it's not really an issue for us. But one company that has been really awesome to work with for us is Stegmeyer Games, but that's part of his deal. It's like, do you want to remain on our list to get review games, then you've got to, within a certain time period, produce some sort of content. So anyway, we were up against that with My Little Scythe.
Leaving town.
Yeah, and her leaving town. And we had already reviewed My Little Scythe, so I thought, what better way to kick off our YouTube channel than to do a review of My Little Scythe? Well, right before that deadline came up, we also were talking to our buddy Gavin from Vamoose Co. Games in Australia, who were getting ready to kick off their Scofton Kickstarter campaign. And he got a hold of me and said, hey, I heard you're wanting to get into video. Would you want to do a how to play of Scofton? Because they had sent us, we talked about it last episode, they sent us a really awesome prototype for it. And we were like, yeah, sure. They were already going to use our stuff on the Kickstarter from the podcast, but he's like, it'd be really cool if you think you can do. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if my videos are going to be any good at all. They might suck. I've never done any video editing before at all. But I was like, yeah, let's just do it. Well, it turns out, this iPad that I have will do everything. So turns out I just fiddled around with it for a little bit,
and it doesn't suck.
And no, and what I would say is, go check out our video. So all that being said, I basically jumped in, made a 30-minute video for how to play Scofton, and we did some skits and stuff. And then I immediately turned around and right after that and made a My Little Scythe video where we have Lily on there. And it's fun. If you like shut up and sit down style of reviews, I think you'll like ours. We don't take ourselves very seriously, but we also try to get across how to play the game, The My Little Scythe, we did some stop motion animation in it, and it's just like anything. You guys have all heard my production on this show. When I start messing with an idea, I go all in on it. So I think the videos, they're great. They're worth checking out. Go check out our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/NSFWP Podcast, and subscribe. And hey, there's still a few days left when this comes out to go check out our My Little Scythe video and comment and like it on YouTube, and you'll be in for your chance to win a copy of My Little Scythe from Stonemaier Games, because that's part of the deal is we end up getting these review games for games that we've already bought. And so why do we need 2 copies of it, right? So we give it away. And so we've done that before with Scythe, and we're going to do that with My Little Scythe. So yay for you guys. So yeah. So our stupidity of not waiting for free games is your reward.
That's right.
So we've been doing so much I mean, there's been so much shit going on since the last time. We'll get into it on IRL, but for anybody who knew and was reading at Facebook and stuff, like Leandra had some surgery. And so let's talk about a little bit about how you're feeling and everything now.
I feel better. I feel much better. I'm energy level is super ridiculously low still, but they said to expect that for a couple more weeks. But as far as pain and stuff, I'm very fortunate and I feel 100% better than I did even before surgery.
That's great. So yeah, you're doing really well. I think the hardest thing is to keep you from trying to overdo yourself, because then that's when you get the exhaustion and everything else, you know. So it's hard to keep you. So
it's my fault that we have not recorded in the last month, people, and I apologize with traveling and surgery and such. So I'm sorry.
Hey, totally understandable. And we're going to try to get back on more regular basis, but hey, no promises. I would say I want to make more videos. So we're going to try to spread that out between YouTube and the podcast. And I may even at some point try to meld the two. I'm not real sure about that. Maybe doing like a live YouTube show.
Excuse me.
Blow me down. That was supposed to be Popeye, but I don't. No, I don't. Never mind.
Sorry.
Good God, woman. That nursing home food really just went right to you.
Completely out of context, bringing up the nursing home.
Anyway, yeah, we just went and visited a friend's grandpa of ours in the nursing home, and they were having like Christmas dinner there, so we just filled up on nursing home food.
It wasn't bad.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Obviously. Compliments to the chef on that one. All right, well, she's back, people. She's back. Grosser than ever. All right, well, let's get the plugs out of the way. So I've already plugged our YouTube channel. Definitely go check that out. Please subscribe and like our videos. Get your chance to win my little scythe. We're going to be doing more, and I think you'll really enjoy them. Like I said, if you like the shut up and sit down style. Also, check out our website, www.nsfwppodcast.com, for all links to our episodes and pictures and all kinds of fun stuff. Hey, buy a t-shirt. We have t-shirts on there on the sidebar of the website. You can get our t-shirts. They're very reasonably priced. They got a cool design, all kinds of different colors. Go get one. Rep your love for the NSFWP podcast. We don't make any money off this thing. It would help to pay the hosting and all that shit. So buy a t-shirt, you lazy bastards. And then also Twitter and Instagram. All that is under NSFWP Podcast. You can also get the feed on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. So anywhere you want to look for us, just add that P on the end of NSFW, so you don't get all your booty pics and all that, and then just you'll get us. So after that, what do we always do next, babe, besides play around on our phones while we're trying to record a podcast?
Checking Angel's responses.
Anyway, so what do we do next?
Well, now that I mentioned him, we better at least give him a shout out, because he's usually our first one to respond on all of our podcast.
That's true.
Stuff.
My old buddy Angel Squeak Diaz from Dallas, went to high school with him. He listens to the podcast, and he desperately wants to game more, but even though he lives in the heart of one of the biggest board game centers in America, he seems to not be able to find a way to play board games.
Heart.
But
he's getting ready to start a D&D campaign.
He is. So,
yes.
What do you say?
I posted a picture of our toasting of the shot glasses, and he said that he was getting ready to make his character, and I asked him what character, and what did he say? Cleric, yeah. So good luck to him with that.
Yes. Hopefully you can keep a D&D campaign going better than we ever could.
Yeah, we've kind of
usually like one or two sessions in there.
I know.
So what's the next thing we do?
Yes.
Good luck with your cleric, Angel.
Yes, absolutely. We talk about what we've been playing recently.
That's correct. All right, we played a lot of games, but we're going to filter out a lot of the chaff and get right to the wheat. I think that's what it is. And
never heard that.
You never heard separate the wheat from the chaff?
No.
Oh, come on, babe. Get
Sorry.
your middle-aged agrarian.
I don't got it.
Middle Ages agrarian terms down. It's also in a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song, Almost Cut My Hair. I used to play that song all the time.
Sorry.
No?
Can't help you.
All right. Well, fine. Anyway.
Can't help you.
I'll pull that thing. I just pulled the emergency brake on the whole show there. All right. So, what have we been playing recently? We've got 4 games to talk about. I would say every single one of these games falls squarely into the heavy Euro game category.
Agreed.
Some more than others. rule set is not all that heavy on all these, but the complexity, the rule set's heavy on some of them. But so the first one we're going to talk about is a game I've been wanting for a long time. One of those again. There's a few on this list that I saw on Kickstarter, wanted it, passed it up, wasn't sure about it. As soon as it came out, I was like, "Yep, gotta have it." It's called Wendake. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's from Renegade Games, designed by Danielo Sabia. So Wendake is about being a Native American tribe in what is now the Great Lakes area of the United States around the time of the French Indian War. So like all that's going on, and there's really no war between the French and the Indians in this game, but that's the time period that's set in. And you do some trading with the colonialists and stuff, but mostly you're just a tribe of Indians kind of fighting amongst each other for some things. But it's a mix of a really cool action selection mechanism. So first of all, let's talk about that. What did you think about that, babe? You've got this 3x3 grid of actions, and everybody starts out with the same actions.
I did I thought that was a cool twist how they made it to where the 3 bottom actions that are available dropped off the board after every round, so that your actions always changed every round. So if you used them, it kind of forced you to want to use those bottom 3. That way you had all of the actions above that available for your next round.
Yeah, that
was a cool little twist.
That, or the cool thing was like, okay, so you got this 3x3 thing. You're going to take 3 actions every turn, and once so basically you set down one of your action cylinders on one of these things, and then after that you have to pick to either go diagonally or straight to your left or straight up and down, whatever. You have to stay in a column is basically the idea. You either have to stay in a row or a column. It can be diagonal. And so all the actions that you select will be starting from that first one you put down and going in a straight line. Yeah,
so you can't just pick willy-nilly on your board.
Except the middle one is a campfire token. And if you place there, then you can pick anything outside of that line that you do. But then your next one has to be in line with that campfire token. And like Lee said, at the end of that round, all of those things slide down. It has this cool double layered player board, and all these things slide down, and the bottom 3 fall off, and you have to pick one of them to upgrade. And so your actions are always going to be changing and getting better throughout the game. And so, yeah, I think that's really cool. Your actions consist of things like gathering vegetables that you're in the spots for on the board with your women folk, with your warrior dudes. You can either protect the women folk or the hunters, or they can be soldiers themselves, or they can go down as spots called, I can't remember, huts or whatever, I think, some kind of huts. You lay them down and they become buildings basically that you can then exchange for getting more of your women folk and your hunter guys out on the board.
I found that we really didn't use the warriors as much as we used the women.
No, it's not a fighting game, really.
It's not.
I mean, you can, but like the battle mechanic is just basically like if we both have the same amount of warriors, we kill each other off. It doesn't help anybody. If I have more warriors than you, I can take your thing over.
Yeah.
And I can also take over, kill your women or your hunters and then take their place.
We played with this with Steven, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did.
It's got that cool sort of area control thing going on in the middle to get your resources, but then the other actions you have are hunting with your hunters to get beaver pelts, which then you do this. Another action is to trade your beaver pelts in for leather, and then another action is a trade action in which you take the stuff that you've gathered on the board and you're going to get points just for taking some of these actions. And that's an interesting thing to talk about is the scoring in this game. It's got a sort of Reiner Knizia style scoring where there's 4 different tracks and they're randomly tied to 2 of them a piece are randomly tied together. So you have 4 scoring tracks. 2 of them are bunched up, one at the top and one at the bottom of the board. And so that this is not making any sense the way I'm explaining it, but basically you will score the lowest of the top 2 on the board and the lowest score of the bottom 2. So
you want your different scores to be close together, because if one's way out and the other one's way below, you're going to get scored on the way below one. So you're trying to to keep on making points based on your lowest score tracker.
You're always trying to catch up to your highest one with your lowest one. So it's good. It forces you from just focusing on one action over and over and over. It forces you to play a balanced game, which is a cool way that Reiner Knizia does. I think it's kind of a trick thing to make your game, to make mechanisms that maybe aren't balanced balance out. But either way, it's a great way to have very different actions that maybe one is very powerful, but you can't just keep doing that because it's not going to help you in the end.
I think that for me, we did an injustice for this game because of the games that we played directly after it. It's kind of fallen off the grid for me.
Well, it's been over a month since you played.
Well, I know, but like the other two games you're getting ready to mention, like I want to replay those.
Yeah.
This one isn't really one that makes me want to replay it.
See, I really like this game. Now, I like all these other games we're playing, and maybe I like some of them better, but I actually really like this game. I think it's very clever. There's a lot going on to it. I think with one play, like if we'd have turned around and played it again soon. Yeah, you probably would have won. I did win that one, by the way. But Lee did really good. It was very close at the end. I think actually it might have went down to a tiebreaker. It did go down to a tiebreaker. Yep. But there's so much going on in this game that in one play, that was the second time I'd played it. And it definitely benefits that one play under your belt.
Absolutely.
So I think if like all these other games, the only one that this is the 2 of the 4 that we're going to talk about, you've only played once. The other 2 have played several times, and at least 2. And this one, I think if we'd have turned around and played it again, I think you liked it at the time, right?
I did. I mean, it wasn't, I didn't hate it.
So like if we turned around and played it again, you would have more of an idea of how to implement a strategy rather than just try to do the best.
It is definitely a strategy game. Play it at least once.
So that's Wendake. Like I said, there's lots of other actions we didn't talk about. There's upgrading, there's getting these special tiles. The trading mechanism is pretty cool. How you're putting boats out in the lakes. And the more boats you have, the more trade actions you can do, and you want to get those out there because they don't do anything else for you except just boost this trading action. And the trading action is really the heart of the game.
It is.
If you're not doing well in the trading stuff,
then you're not going to get anything.
You're not going to be able to get any of the high scoring or the special actions that let you score more. You're not going to be able to, and that's a big deal. Like we talked about having those different scoring tracks. There's some of them that mitigate that, where like just every time you take this action, then you're going to score another point for it. So that could help to get that special tile, to get that one that's way behind. You get the special tile that's for your mask action. We didn't talk about that either. So there's this other track or this other section of the board that's called the mask section. So this has to do with like these traditions of these particular type of Native Americans. They had these mask ceremonies, and so there's part of this board that is like a set collection of these mask cards, and basically you're building a hand of these mask cards throughout the game, which I think is pretty cool. And every time you take that action, then you can lay down the best set you can do, which is like 2 different kinds of masks. Early on, you're going to score that, and that's like 1 point, and then you can do a pair, and that's maybe 2 points, and then you can do 2 pairs and 3 of a kind and 4. But the whole game, you're not discarding the ones you play. You're building up a hand to get these better and better scoring on this mask track. And that one is one of those ones that can fall behind if you don't pay attention to getting those cards. So, and they're also used for a mechanic of smallpox. Every time you do the trading action, you have to flip over one of these cards, and it tells you whether, since you traded with the white man, did you just get a disease that's possibly going to wipe out your village. And every time you flip over one, and it has a little skull on the blanket at the bottom of it, it's so dark. Then you have to kill one of your people off the board, and they have to go back to your longhouse. So there's just a lot going on. Thematically, it's really cool, I think. It feels like, to me, it's got a little bit of a Scythe Light feel with Native Americans. It's kind of got that kind of thing going on. So Leandra's not big into it, apparently. I think she probably didn't play it enough to really...
Not that I wasn't big into it. I would prefer to have replayed, or we will replay some of the other games we've been playing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to get that one out again sometime. Steven seemed to like it, too.
Yeah,
he was, I don't know, he fell behind early because I think he didn't get part of it. And then by the end, when he did get it, he's like, oh, I should have done all this other stuff different. He figured it out at the point where he was like, it's too late to do anything about it. But okay, so that's Wendake from Renegade Games and designer Danielo Sabia. What's up next, babe?
Brass Birmingham. Oh my goodness.
So let's go back to the original Brass.
Hated it.
Brass is a game designed by Martin Wallace. One of my favorites, I would say probably my number 2 favorite designer, behind Bruno Cathala. He is a world-renowned train game designer. I mean, he does other things, but his biggest stuff, he does some war games, but most of his games that everybody knows are something to do with trains. Steam, Age of Steam, what other train? Via Nebula, which is essentially a train game that we liked. A very light version of that. Railways of the World, which we haven't played. Train games. He's a big train game, but I think he does 18XX games, which are the really heavy train games. But he also did A Study in Emerald, which is one of my all-time favorite games, and it is not a train game. We on the shelf now have the new train game with Cthulhu called Australia, which is the sequel to Study in Emerald, but it's a train game with Cthulhu, so can't beat that. We haven't played that one yet, though. So, going back to the original Brass, was published by, who did it? It's up on the shelf. Did I hide it?
Probably. I hate it.
Okay, Eagle Griffin Games, which you did a bunch of his train games. So, maybe one of the ugliest games of all time.
Ugly. And for me, like I've mentioned before, the artwork and the visual aspect of it's a make or break for me. So it was so ugly. I was like, ugh. And so I never really gave myself a chance to fall in love with the game because the artwork was ugh.
It is. It's very bad. I had learned, I think we talked about it when we first played it on the podcast at some point. Would have been, a while back. But I had been playing it on the iPad, which the artwork on the iPad version is completely different than the original. It's completely different than this new version. But it is way better than the original. So I got used to that, and then I'm like, well, I can forgive this shitty artwork because I know that it's a good game, right? So I was trying to get you to look past that into the mechanism of the game, and you were just like, yeah, I just don't see it.
No.
But you hated the look of the game.
Hated it.
So
completely whiteboard.
Here comes along, well, it's all just beigey, gross. Yeah. So now comes along the Roxley version, reprint of Brass. They did the original, which is called Lancashire, and then they updated it with some design efforts from Gavin Brown and Matt Tomlin, which are guys that run Roxley Games, I believe. Big time Brass fans, right? They took data from the digital version and thousands and thousands of play reports from the game, and they did some more math and they crunched some numbers and they said, okay, here's what people don't like about the original. Let's fix it. What they did in Brass Birmingham is add a couple of more commodities. They added a beer mechanism.
They added artwork.
The artwork is the biggest upgrade. The artwork is, what do you think about the new version since you hated the original?
I loved it. There's a dark side and a light side.
Mm-hmm. So you got the nighttime board, which is all like glowing with forges. Yeah,
it's got this cool lantern on the side. And
then there's the daytime version, which actually has some green in it. And, and there's double-sided player boards. Yeah, now you have player boards to stack up all your different technologies and goods that you can sell and stuff. If you don't know anything about Brass, I'm not going to explain the entire game. It's basically a route building game.
That's all it
and
is.
Economic game. You're trying to make money.
Make a route so you can sell and trade goods. Like that's really about it. But it's really fun. It's a think ahead game. Oh my gosh, if I do this and I have to do this, if I don't do this and I can't do this. And then the Brass Birmingham version we have, there's canals.
Well, that's every version. Yeah, you have two.
Oh,
basic,
it's both of them.
Yeah, in all of them, it's you start out and the first half of the game is played as a canal era because it's very thematic. The game is set in the Industrial Revolution in England, where they originally got things around. There were no roads really; they were all dirt roads, and they could get just a few things shipped. So they started making all this coal and iron and stuff, and they figured out that the best way to move it around was on barges. So they just started digging all these canals all over the place. Well, then the invention of the steam engine came along, and they're like, "Well, shit, this is way more effective and faster than these barges. So let's fill in all these canals that we built, and let's build railroads."
So we're putting up, learning how to play it for the first time.
Now I have played. Let me preface. I have played Brass. I played it online or on the iPad 50 times probably, and I played it.
Catherine.
I played the physical version about 5 or 6 times.
So we set it up to play here, and we had to start over 2 different times.
Yeah, I kept forgetting very important rules.
And even after we started over the second time, we still were not playing it right. We weren't giving ourselves our end of round income.
Yep.
And so we played it again, and I quote.
Well, we played it the first time and you won.
I won.
After that game had a big asterisk because we only got our money half of the game.
Yes, big, huge. Yeah, we did no income, like hardly any income, and I won. So we played it again the second time properly, and the quote was, "Why did I ever teach you this game?" As I beat him by 35 points.
Oh, you killed me. It was one of those games.
Why did I ever teach you this game? Came out of my husband's mouth.
Yes, because you were spanking me pretty bad, and you kept going, "Oh, you're fine. You'll catch up." As you just kept making more money and kept making more points. I'm like, "There's no way I could even possibly catch you."
But see, the thing is when I'm winning mid game, that's his thing. Oh, you're totally winning. You totally got this. You totally got this. You're totally winning. And then
it's because you are.
And then the last round comes around, and then he usually just like bypasses me. So I usually don't listen to him anymore because that's just his way of losing. Is you're totally winning. You're totally winning. And then the last game, oh, well, what do you know? I got end of game scoring and I won. You know, that's usually how that works.
Okay, so this is true. I did a bad job of teaching it to you, but even that proves how good a game is. Now, I will say, I've played this game wrong several times with several different people. Like, you can forget a little rule that makes a big difference.
But no income, but we still made it work.
I played it where I played it like that, where we had very little income. I played it where we got too much income before, and everybody was rich, and everybody maxed out their income by the end of the game, which is like easy mode. I played it like that wrong. I played it that way wrong. There's a lot of gotcha rules, and I will say that I don't like the rule book in the new one. I mean, the artwork in it is fantastic and everything, but the layout, to find a few important things are like tucked away in these or they're only stated once at the end of a sentence in part of another mechanism, and they're never said again. And so when you want to find that important little detail, it's damn near impossible. You almost got to read the whole damn book again. Yeah, we screwed up everything from what I screw up, not getting our income.
There was something really big where we had to stop in the middle and start over.
Well, for one thing is you can screw up the card count if you don't, because the whole game is card driven, right? And so you're going to play a number of actions every round. And when you're out of cards, you're out of actions. And if you screw that up somehow by playing too many cards or not enough, cards on your turn, the first turn, everybody only takes one action. Well, we fucked that up the first time. And we took 2 actions. We screwed up the card count, but that wasn't that big of a deal. Also, what I did the first time was, what did I do? I screwed up something so bad where I was like, we cannot continue like this. We have to stop playing. I don't even remember what that was. But I
don't either.
But there are some gotcha rules in here as far as like the difference between being connected and being part of your network. It's not a big deal to tell that. It's pretty easy if it's got your color canals or tracks connected to a city or going out of that city, then it's in your network. Connected just means with anybody's stuff, but to remember which actions it matters whether you're connected or whether it's in your network is kind of weird. And just the way that like
I kept on drinking all my beer.
Yep. The way we weren't paying for our canals or we weren't paying for our tracks, I think is what it was. Is we just forgot to pay our coal and stuff when we started the second round. I think that's what it was. But anyway, so yeah, and you got to remember how, you pay $3 for a canal, but then to build railroads, once you get into that area, you're going to pay $5 and then a coal. And then if you want to build 2 tracks, you got to pay $15 coal and a drink of beer. So you got to remember
counterproductive if you're building a track and drinking beer.
No, but that's thematic because back then the water was like, especially around the places where these factories were, the water was all polluted. So they would give the workers beer to drink instead of water because otherwise they'd be getting sick and shit. Just have a bunch
of drunk workers.
That's right. They work it out of them, man. They make them sweat all the alcohol.
There you go.
So I like the beer mechanism in Birmingham. It makes Lancashire seem... It's weird because it adds more to the game than the original, but also makes it easier to play. It's a weird way that they did it. They added more stuff to it, but gives you more options. Lots of times in Lancashire, you'll just be like, well, I got nothing to do, so I'll just build a track. That doesn't happen in this game till the very end of the round where you're like, well, I could do this, but maybe I won't because it's better to just build a track.
Well, yeah, because that very first round, everything that you place on there, if it's not a second level or higher, gets taken
away
off the board.
Yeah, so you got these different levels of buildings and stuff that you're going to be building in, and all the level 1s go away. So if you hadn't,
and then there's a mechanism built in where you can pretty much buy out your level 1, so you don't even put them on the board. So the first thing you're doing is you're putting level 2 stuff on the board, and that stuff stays on the board. So there's so many different ways of tackling how to get points in this game. I really, really enjoyed playing it.
See, I'm so happy, and I was almost convinced that you would like it if I could get you over the hump of like forgetting about the first time you played it when it was so ugly, because I was like, the artwork is so good, and it's your type of game. I just knew it was. I knew that before we even played the original version. I knew it was your type of game, but I also knew that you saw that board and your attitude for it just went out. And I was like, damn, she's just going to hate it on principle. You know?
I did.
You did.
You don't know me.
Yep. So that's good. I would like to pick up the Lancashire version, because now we have the deluxe version with the poker chip money and everything. So we don't need that. We don't need the big deluxe box. I can just buy the Lancashire retail box, and then would have just basically two more maps to play on. And there's a specific 2-player side on the Lancashire, which doesn't exist in the other ones. You have to like just not use certain areas of the board. And the Lancashire has one side of the board that's just for 2 players, which is kind of cool. So Brass, the new version of Moxley Games, everybody has talked about it ad nauseum. Leading, we're probably the last ones to chime in on it, but it's worth doing, because that is one of those games that for heavy board gamers has always been a must-have classic, modern classic. You talk about modern classic like Catan or whatever. Brass has definitely been one of those for years, but it's also was just for hardcore people because it was so damn ugly. It was just like, it looks like a shitty war game. Now it's been deluxeified and made a top tier, modern board game.
Absolutely.
So Brass Birmingham is where it's at.
Do it.
All right. What's next on ours? Another one that you really like.
I enjoy the hell out of this next one too. Trickerion.
Trickerion is by Mind Clash Studios and published by Ape Games, which I gotta say, Ape Games turns out one of my favorite publishers. I looked and I've got 4 games of theirs. We talked about Petrichor. That's Ape Games. I have Spirits of the Rice Paddy by Philip Dewberry. You've never played that one, but you're gonna love that one. It's awesome. I've had it for a couple of years, and I played it at Geekway a couple of years ago and haven't got it back out yet since. But that's by Ape Games. Great Dinosaur Rush I just picked up. That's by Ape Games. But they just have great games. So they're a publisher to look out for. And then the designers for Trickerion are Richard Amon and Victor Peter. These are the guys that since Trickerion was kickstarted, they went on to do Anachrony, which is another super heavy game about time travel and whatnot. And then they just released the Inside World, Cerebria, the Inside World, which is like a super complex, heavy area control team game about basically it's like Pixar's Inside Out, but super heavy. It just doesn't even interest me. It sounds so confusing and so goofy that I'm like.
But you just said Pixar and Disney and doesn't interest me in the same sense.
No, I was all in. I was in on this Kickstarter for like the $200 version with the painted miniatures and everything else. Then I watched a how to play video and I was like, nope, cancel pledge. It's so complicated for no reason, in my opinion. Like Trickerion's complicated, right? But everything you do makes sense. It's like follows upon another. There's so many weird mechanisms in Cerebria that are all just like, they make no sense why you're doing it. And then you've got to figure them all. I don't know. And all the reviews I've heard is, well, if you want to learn all this weird terminology and all this stuff, there's a really good game in here, but it is not for the casual person. And I love.
You're not a casual board gamer.
But I don't know. I don't know why it scared me away. And I just don't. Maybe someday I'll play it and I'll be like, I gotta have it.
So rewind this podcast and go back to the part where you said, I'm kicking myself for not getting it on Kickstarter.
Well, it's already out, so I can't get the Kickstarter version anymore. So if I buy it now, it'll be the shitty version.
Right.
But I'll probably play it and end up loving it and be eating my words. But for now, I prefer, since I passed it up, I prefer to just,
to say it's horrible.
Say it sucks. But I said the same thing about Trickerion. No, I didn't know about Trickerion. I didn't know about the Kickstarter for it or anything. And I always wanted it, but I always had heard that it was very heavy.
I
thought that doesn't scare me, but maybe you wouldn't like it.
Box weighs 20 pounds.
But the theme is about it is heavy. Literally, it's heavy. the theme is about being magicians in like the I don't know, what'd you say, the 20s?
Sure.
30s? Yeah,
20s.
somewhere, probably the 20s. And the artwork's amazing.
Yep.
And it's all just about that. It's more about the preparing for your show than it is about the performing your show.
Preparing for a magic show. But
tell us how it works, babe. Tell us, because I know you are a master at this damn game. So let's talk about
slide on through.
Trickerion.
Give me a.
I started a new thing where I'm putting up pictures of the games to
wrong way
to Leandra, so she can remember what these games are.
It is.
Did you already forget Trickerion?
No, I haven't. But
okay, trying to remember the boards. And
yeah,
stuff?
I'm just trying to remember exactly what the board looks like.
Okay, well, let's get to a good
That's
picture.
your
So
game.
basically, Trickerion, you are being a magician, and I'm trying to flip through. Here we go. There's one of the boards.
So yes, you're a magician, and there's a downtown. There's different markets, areas of the board game. There's a part
areas of the board game. Are there different areas of the board game?
There are.
Babe?
There's areas where you can go get your product to help you do your magic tricks. There's areas where you can get assistance so that you have more options on your player board. There's areas on the flip side of this board game that I'm looking at right here in the dark alley where you can get different cards to be able to put in your hand for special powers that your opponent won't have. And then there's the actual stage where you can go and have stage help for extra points depending on what day of the week that you decide to perform on. It gives you plus or minus points in actions. And there's so many options to this game. I loved it. And we played it the first time, like, I don't know, a week after my surgery. And so it was hard for me to concentrate. And so we played it again.
But you were high on
I was high on oxycodone or whatever, and so, but it was still a lot of fun. And then we played it the next day, and I got really tired, so we ended up having to like stop halfway in between and start over again. And it was still like, even with all that bullshit that went along with it, it was such a fun game. Like, it's definitely one where you play it and you want to immediately play it again because, like, ooh, I know there's a different way I could have handled this, and if I'd have done this, and if I got that assistant instead of this assistant, or, you know, because all the assistants give you extra powers, of course,
and more workers,
and more workers, and more spots to hold cards, and you have to pay your workers, and blah 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 blah. Like,
so what kind of game is this? This is what is weird to say. It's at its heart a worker placement.
It's a worker placement game,
but it also has everything else. Like, this is one of those kitchen sink games. It has every type of mechanism. There's
cards you have to build your hand.
It's got set collection. It's got worker placement. It's got dice rolling even because you're dependent what sorts of things you can buy at the market.
The artwork is beautiful.
The artwork is great. I mean, you know, you're in for a heavy game whenever everybody gets. It's like there's another one called Lisboa from I can't think of the designer's name. He did Vital Lacerda. Yeah. He's the guy that did Vinos. He has a game called Lisboa where everybody gets basically a rule book of their own because everything needs to be broken down. And this game has that, where the tricks are so complex, and there's four different types of tricks that you can do, from illusion to escape to.
And you place the club, a heart, or a diamond, or a spade. So.
Oh God, you're going to try to explain this part?
No, I'm not going to try to explain it. But like, it just goes into so much detail. You pick a suit to go with your trick, and then that trick gets performed, and then the way the player board, you have to like match them up. And I can't.
It has everything. It has spatial relations. It has pre-planning big time. Like, this is one of the games that, I mean, there's more pre-planning in this game than almost anything I can think of, because if you don't,
there's only a certain amount of spots open to be able to play. So you choose what you're going to do in secret, and then you flip over your cards. And so
so it's got programming.
Yeah. So if Ben chose to go in that spot and I chose to go in that spot, okay, well, who gets to go first?
And you could have wanted to go there twice.
And then if you put two people there, spots, then you can't do it, and then that's a wasted player. And it's just great.
It's got a little bit of every damn game that I've ever played in it. And and that was just the base game. Then you flip it over and it's got the dark alley, which adds about 3 other things on top of that. Some of them I didn't even think were worth doing, but you have to. If you flip it over, you got to play with everything there. And in order to add the expansion that we got, the Dalgon's Gifts or whatever, which makes it better for 2 players. It gives you some stage cards or performance cards that are more tuned for 2 players. But then you get this prophecy thing, which is this deal where there's these rotating discs, and they're going to put in global rule for the round, and you can manipulate that. Or it has these things which I didn't like that much, but you have to play with them if you play with that on that side, is these special action cards. So basically everybody starts out the game with the same action cards, right? And you've got a certain number for the theater, a certain number for the market, certain for downtown, certain for dark alley. Then this allows you to go to the dark alley and get those special action cards, which are just like the ones you start out with, except for you play them down and it tells where your workers are going to go. But then it also has a special ability on it. Like if you go to the market and then everybody gets an extra action point. So that's another part of the game is action point system, which is really cool and very, you got to, it just maths everything, So not only are you placing your worker, but your worker has a value and every worker has different values and you have to know how many values you need to do that. And you can pay these Trickerion charges to up your value. Anyway, well, these special action cards, it gives everybody who's going to that location that's on that card an extra action, plus maybe a special ability of, getting double the thing or ordering something from the market cheaper, faster, whatever. But if you don't spend them, they're worth 2 points at the end of the game. I did not realize how much Leandra was just going. Yeah, she was just going to the dark alley every day because she started out with a different assistant that gave her another worker, which was smart. For free that you should have to pay. So she just kept sending her free assistant. So my
free assistant got me 1 point every single round.
And I wasn't doing that. And I got a couple,
and he wasn't paying attention that I was doing.
No, and I wasn't really realizing that that's 2 points at the end of the game for every card she doesn't use. So if you use them, they do their thing and then they get discarded.
And then it's discarded.
And which I did a couple of times. I'm like, well, that's worth it for me. But in the end, it wasn't. It would have been better for me to do that. So I kind of don't like that because you're almost better off just going there every turn to make sure you get that 2 points. I sort of don't like that.
But if you have to pay that worker, it's almost not worth it because,
yeah, if you had to pay them.
Yeah, if I had to pay that worker, I'm not going to
because every 3 coins is worth
just to do nothing.
Points, and so,
he's not doing nothing. He's getting me 2 points, but still.
Yeah, I sort of don't like that, but I guess I don't know. It just seems like if somebody else does it, it makes you have to do it. So you almost have to play somebody in the dark alley just in case somebody else does, so that if they
used a couple of them.
Yeah.
And then from this angle, I'm looking at the picture on the iPad. A quarter of the board
doesn't do anything.
Is the theater, but it's really cool because the way they have, so when you're looking at a seat chart for a theater, they have all the numbers that show you the seats. Well, in this, the theater, the seats are in a U shape around the theater. They use that as the scoreboard.
Yeah,
so the scoreboard is the seats.
It's fucking awesome. Like the graphic design on this game is amazing.
Yep,
because for this game to be this complex, it had to be good. Mm-hmm. Their iconography has to make sense and it has to be consistent, and it is. It's very consistent. They add a couple of new ones in with the expansion that was a little weird. You had to kind of look, what does that mean, but it's flawless as far as that goes, in my opinion, and it has to be because
the rule book was not hard.
The rule book's not hard. It all makes sense because it's one of those games where there's a lot going on, and the biggest issue I think I have with it is that every time you add a new module in, which the last time we played with everything, but every new module you add in changes the in-game scoring, which is weird. So like you start out playing the base game and then in-game is just like,
if this is added in, then you no longer get a point for this.
You don't get point for money, or you don't get points for this, and if you do the magic power, that's another thing we added in was the magician powers. Another thing you did really well on, where you have to use your Trickerion shards to power these special magician powers, which changes. Normally your magicians,
he kept on using his special powers.
I use my Trickerion shards to boost my actions.
Yes,
is what I was doing.
I left them alone so that I could have more powers.
And you were getting more money with that, and you did a really good job getting a lot of money. Money's tight in this game, and if you can figure out a way to get a lot of money, then it'll help you out because you got to pay people to work. Mm-hmm. So if you're sending out all these extra workers that you have, you still got to pay most of them. So I don't know. It's an amazing game.
Highly recommended.
One of those, if you look at it and you're like, this is Richard Amon and Victor Peters' first game, and it's this complex. then no wonder like Anachrony was a step up even from this, and I've heard enough about it to make me not want to play that game either, because I'm just like, it seems like a headache to learn.
I mean, it's heavy, but it's really fun. It's fun.
Once now we played it, we could throw it out and play it no problem.
Yep.
It's not even that long. It doesn't even take that long. I mean, maybe an hour and a half, but for a big, heavy experience like that where there's so much depth.
I am anxious to find out how it plays with more than 2 players.
I think it'll be longer.
It'll totally be longer.
There is AP in this game. You definitely have analysis paralysis where you're just like, yeah, and you'll have, and then like the whole time you're waiting for the other person to play, you've got it all figured out what you want to do, but then you forget because it's like you have so many steps per thing. You're planning out possibly 5 or 6 actions on your turn, and you're pre-programming that. So we would lay our shit down and be like, all right, I'm ready. Wait a minute, let me look again because I forgot what I did. Let me make sure I got those in the right place. Because if you don't, and you send somebody to somewhere that they don't do you any good, then you're just like, damn it, that's not what I wanted to do.
You said AP, that's accounts payable in my world. So I was like, what does it have to do with accounts
that's
payable?
Analysis paralysis, baby.
Well, then if that's the case, then the next game has super AP.
Yeah. So what's the next game on our list, babe?
Newton
by Cranio Creation Studio and published in the U.S. by Simon Games, designed by Simone Luciano and Nestore Mangione. Newton, the theme got me right away.
Of course.
It's Isaac Newton.
Which, if any of you look at our actual, pictures and stuff.
Check out our Instagram and stuff.
He's so freaking cute.
Well, I had to pimp
He went
this
out
game
and bought an apple because there's an apple on the outside of the cover.
Well, it's the first player token is an apple.
Yes, and then the apple was too big. It didn't fit in the box. And then we went to Hobby Lobby to find smaller apples. He bought a whole little bushel of apples.
Plus, I ordered one off Wish, so I have an apple coming from China.
We got green apples coming out of our ass. Lily tried to eat one the other day because he put them in the basket in the kitchen.
I had to find something to do with this. You know what? I've decided I'm going to make a little game from here on out, and we can jump back into this from episode to episode. But I'm going to take all those goddamn little apples that I got, and I'm going to hide them in weird places around the house. And if you find an apple, you can come to me, and I will grant you one wish.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to hide apples.
Here I come.
Butt massage? Is that what you
said butt massage.
Oh, okay.
Not a butt massage.
Well, if I find one, I'm going to get a butt massage.
You can't hide a man. Find him.
Why not? That's a guaranteed butt massage. So, yeah, I got a cubic ton of fucking
green apples.
Fake green apples.
Although I am disappointed that you have not either sketched or drawn Mr. Isaac Newton's picture on that big green apple right there.
Oh, I probably will. Oh, I've got an idea to use that green apple for something fun. But so anyway, so let's get into this game. Okay. So here's
flip the pictures
to start with. Only you just played it this morning.
I know, but I like to look at the pictures.
This is interactive.
It is helpful. You're going the wrong direction.
No, I'm not going the wrong direction.
There it is.
Okay, so there's Newton for you. Here's the one thing. You look at this thing on the table. Before I played it, I saw, I saw all the press releases and some early reviews, and I was like, God damn, there's a lot going on in this game. Like, it just fills up a table like nobody's business.
I called him a liar this morning. He's like, do you want to play? And I was like, no, I saw the pictures of that stupid game. I don't want. He's like, oh, it's not as hard as it seems. Like, that's what you said about Vinos. You said it wasn't hard. And then after we were done, you said it was the hardest game known to man. So, I don't believe you.
But was I wrong? How long did it take? Less than 5 minutes to teach it.
You were not wrong. No.
Right. It's so simple in the rules. It is. But it's the decisions that hurt your brain.
AP.
In this game. A definite AP. So here's the thing. Here's the biggest praise I can heap on this game is I don't play solo games. I don't like solo games normally. Most games that have a solo variant don't work very well, or you got to use Stonemeyer always has an automaton thing because his philosophy in a game is he wants it to play from 1 to 5 players, or he's not interested in publishing that game, right? That's his edict. He wants it to play from 1 to 5. So they always put some kind of one-player thing, which playing Scythe one-player, it supposedly works, but who wants to do that? I don't want to do that. Half the joy is in the player interaction,
sure.
Right? Most games are like that, right? So I always prefer games, multiple players. Well, I looked at the rules of this game, and I thought, well, nobody's doing anything to each other in this game. Like, what could someone do to affect me? Nothing really. And
take the card you want, possibly. Like, that's the only.
And the different setup for one player is so similar that I was like, you just have one less card out to choose from on the study action. I was like, I'll try this one player because I knew you weren't up to it. Some evenings we have so much going on lately, and I was like, I really wanted to check it out so I put it out and I played it. And then the next night I played it again by solo. I like this as a solo game. Like, I wish there was a digital version of this game so you could just play it, because it is a really rewarding single player game, because it's all just about the decisions, and nothing that you do is going to affect me. So it's even playing multiplayer, you're still just in your own head figuring out what you're going to do. I don't care what you're doing. It doesn't matter, So that's one thing I can say is a great single player game. Now we played a 2-player. So what did you think about it?
I thought it was super fun. We played it this morning, actually.
Talk a little bit about what you do in Newton.
Well, I don't really know all the terminology, but there's different choices. There's a little map that you can go on to try to get your little pieces on the big ruins, right?
Well, there's cities, there's universities, basically, let me break this down, then you tell me about the parts you like about each part. So,
Leandra, do you want to describe what's going on? Yes, well, I do. You're doing it wrong. Let me take over.
You seem to be struggling a little.
There you go.
You're struggling.
I was just going ahead. I was going to rewind all that and put in a nice little package for you about what just happened there.
Well, we're going to do that.
Okay.
But I'm going to say that the first thing you're doing...
But you're saying it wrong, and so I'm going to do it for you.
Well, first of all, what kind of game is it? Well, it's sort of it's an
worker placement
card-driven game. You basically all you're doing on your turn is you play a card out of your hand, and you do an action based on that type of card. There's 4 different kind of actions, and they all have like a sort of board spot on them. So you've got one big board that is what Leander was talking about, was a map of Europe. Your scientist dude starts out in the middle, and he's going to move around collecting bonus tokens and going and visiting these different spots, from ancient ruins to different universities. And he's going to be learning stuff like that. And everywhere he goes that he stops on, he's going to drop a cube. And those cubes can affect some things.
He's going to drop a deuce.
He's going to drop a deuce cube. God. So highbrow. We are so highbrow. So then that's one action. That's the travel action. Then there's another board for the technology action, in which you're using some other they're called students, littler meeples than your scientist. And you've got 4 of them. But you start out with one of those on this board. And it's a big board, the same size as the map one, but it's got all these different paths that you can go down to develop these different technologies. Very abstract, because you have no idea what technologies you're actually doing. You're just, again, moving around, trying to get on certain things to get extra actions and bonuses and stuff like that. So that's one type of card you can play down. Another type of card you can play is the work action, which is a whole nother little track on its own, where you're moving up, and the strength of that action will get you money. So like if in any of these cards, like when I play them on my board, I get the level of action based on the number of those I've played previously. So if I've played one work card before and I play another work card, then I have that second one gives me a level 2 action that time instead of a level 1 like the first time. And that's like that for all these cards. And those are going to affect different things you can do. Then there's a study action, which I can play down, and depending on the level of the action I'm taking, I can get new cards in my hand. So then the other thing I can do is a book action. And all these cards that I'm playing down, some of them have books on the top of them, different color. There's orange, green, blue, and that's it. And depending on the number of the colors and numbers of those books that are played down on the cards that I've played previously, when I take that book action, I can then on my player board, I have this little library up here, and I'm trying to put out my book markers in different spots of this library to fill up these rows or columns, which are going to give me end of round scoring and end of game scoring. So if that sounds complicated, that is what it is. So those are the 4 different kind of actions. Then you have a joker card. So the whole game, you're going to be building your hand and getting better and better cards. But the kicker is every round, after you've played 5 cards down, you have to pick one of the cards that you played and get rid of it, basically tuck it under your board. And you can still use that as one of those action multipliers. So now if, say, I take one of my book cards I did, I slide it under there, and that book symbol is showing, well, now the next time I take a book action, I've got a level 2 action right away because you'll have 2
books.
But I have one less book action to play out of my hand. So I have to be doing that study action in order to get more and better. And the higher level ones, the level 3s, have really good special actions that happen like immediately. Like you play it and you get $1 and you get to, and it's worth a orange book or whatever.
There's so many different routes to take to get points. And that's where I kind of found myself lost a little bit. This morning was my first time playing, and I was focusing, I think, too much on the fact that I had to discard a card, and then I needed to get a card with that same symbol on there, but make sure it was upgraded so that then I have to play that card so I know it's there so I can discard it. Like I was focusing too much on the fact that I was going to lose a card.
You're worried about that.
I was.
But it's not really the end of the world. There's only one card that you don't want to be stuck without, and that's the study, so you can get more cards. If you get rid of that one and your Joker card, you're kind of fucked because you can't ever get any more cards. Yeah. They should really, they do say that in the rule book, but they should really say specifically, do not discard this if it's the only one you have because it's bad,
Yeah. But all in all, I'm looking forward to playing this game again.
You did really well.
I didn't suck at it. I lost by 5 points. That wasn't too bad. And for my first time playing and his third time playing.
You had beaten my previous high score in a solo game by 12 points. Your first time playing.
Yeah.
So that's really good. I played it. My first time I played it, I got 61 points, which was about the mid-level of the scoring, for the one-player thing. The second time I played it, I got 51 points. I tried a different strategy. I got 51 points.
You were killing it on the book section of...
Yeah, I usually suck at that part.
You were killing it.
But I was really
So you were getting a lot of end-of-round scoring.
Yeah, and I learned this game. I finally kind of clicked with me that part where you have to really look at where you're placing them and find out, because you're scoring points because of these different rows and columns. So if you can find certain ones that crisscross and they're the point, they bisect the row and column, then you're really helping yourself out. Mm-hmm. So if you get all those first and then start building off of those to finish out the rows and columns, it's going to do you a lot more good. And I think before I was jumping around the board, I was, I went over here and one over here and one over here. And then you never complete those rows and you don't get them. Yeah. By the last round, I was scoring 21 points.
Yeah.
And you were scoring 11.
Yeah. 11.
So that's a big deal.
The only thing that caught me up was I had the end of game scoring for all
your money.
My money was worth
you had 20 some points and money. Yeah. And I only had 3.
Yeah.
And that was the only in-game scoring thing that we got on. So basically you're also tailoring your scoring throughout the game by moving these people around. There's in-game scoring. There's one spot to get on in the map area. And then in that technology area, there's a bunch of different ones that you can get on. In the work area, there's one. But I think the hardest thing to do anything on in this game is that technology with your students. Mm-hmm. It's hard to move that unless you really focus and get all those cards. There's so much other stuff to do that it's hard, even though there's some really good bonuses over there. I
only ever had one technology card in my hand the whole entire game.
Yeah, you could buy them. You could always buy them. We just didn't. Neither one of us did. I bought one extra one, I think, but also it's costly because you have to spend $5 to get a new student out there. Now, neither one of us did. We both found bonuses that got us free students, which is nice, but. Then by the time we get them,
backtrack your students. So that once they get on a path, they stay on that path. Mm-hmm. You cannot backtrack them. Where when you're discovering on the other side of
traveling,
traveling, you can backtrack and move and go around. But your students, once they're on a path, they're on a path.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's like they're experimenting this one avenue, and then that's it. It branches a couple times early on, but once you pick a certain way, then you've got to, if you want to do anything with them, you got to keep them going on that path and get to the very end point, which are usually in-game scoring. If you change your mind
halfway through, well, shit, I didn't end up getting all these potions I thought I was going to get now, but you're SOL.
Yep. And then there's also the master cards, which we didn't talk about. Everybody gets some master cards at the beginning of the game, and they are like they're dudes from the time period, which I can't pull any of them right now, but they're great scientists from the Renaissance era and the era of Enlightenment, right? So Newton's one of them, and then I don't know who all else. But they're going to give you, if you hit any of these spots on the board, that's the only way you can play them is if you get to these certain spots on the board, on all the different areas, have one. And you get 4, and I was able to play all 4 of mine, which I've never been able to do before. They're worth in-game points, plus they give you this immediate ability that can really be powerful.
I only got 2.
And you only got 2 of them out, and I got all 4 of mine out, so I got all that in-game scoring. But also those special abilities saved my ass in a couple times when I was able to play when I didn't even have a card for the technology board. I had discarded it, hoping to get one. I actually milled through the entire deck of one of the technologies,
all of your money,
one of the studying things to get one, and there wasn't one. I got through the whole deck because you can spend $1 to flip out 2 new cards of those study cards to try to get the one you want. I spent $4 and emptied the entire deck, and there wasn't one of those in there. I was like, son of a bitch. So, but I got my
But
master.
then I got a good choice of cards.
You did. You had you could have anything you wanted out of there. You knew everything. But so then I got my master card during the next turn when I didn't have a card to play, and it gave me a power 4 technology action, which allowed me to get another master played out. So
that was a good hand for you.
It was a big combo. This game's all about making combos, trying to get the most out of each action, hitting all those little extra, or what are they called, bonus tokens that are flipped over, because they got a lot of good shit on there. They get free money, you get free potions. Potions are like this.
Setup wasn't hard either.
Setup's not hard. Everything's randomized. That's what's beautiful about it. Everything's randomized every game. So you just basically just throw down every token has its own shape and size, and you just throw them all down face down randomly, flip them over, and that's your setup. Really easy.
I say setup wasn't hard as I was not in the room.
You didn't do any of it. But it's just a really, really good design. It gives me the feels of Heaven and Ale, first time I played it.
Kind of, yeah.
Where it's like not that hard to learn, but really hard to do well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's
I can get that.
It gives you that feeling of like, everything I can do is bad and I don't have enough time to do it. And
yeah, there were a couple times where I took too long because I was just thinking, and then it switch over to his turn. He's like, shit, I forgot what I already had planned.
Or it'd be like, and I travel and I put a cube down, I'm done. Back to you.
Your turn.
And then 5 minutes later.
Crap.
And then I work 1, 2, 3 coins, I'm done. But it's those travel ones it's that deciding what to do is the hard part. Yeah. When you go to do it, it's all simple.
What's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck?
Yep. So
highly recommended. Go out and get it.
Newton is really cool.
Fun.
Really cool. So Simon is now starting to get, I don't think they're going away from their just big giant 1,000 miniature boxes, but they're bringing in some really good Euro games now. There's what's the one they had? I have never played it, but I've heard it. Lorenzo Il Magnifico that they brought out from, I think, the same company. I think it's Cranio Creations as well, that they brought over, and they did Council of Four, which I also want to try. Just some really classic looking Euro games. That's what I would say this is. So in a time when those are little fewer and farther between than they used to be nowadays, I think Newton's a real winner. So
agreed, baby.
Those are our big 4 games that we were going to talk about. Let's move on to a little plug for Moon City Con. Yes. And we'll be back and talk a little bit about a couple other games we've been playing, some home-brewed board games, and talk a little bit about game design. And it's that time again to get the hype train rolling. Hype train. It's time for, that was good, Soul Train.
There was a Soul Train.
But it was Hype Train. For Moon City Con 2019. If you or anybody who's anyone, you were at Moon City Con 2018, the inaugural, and it was awesome. But if you weren't able to go, now is your chance. Moon City Con 2019 will be September 6th through the 8th at the Oasis Inn and Convention Center in Springfield, Missouri. You will be able to get your tickets fairly soon. I'm not allowed to release the dates, but coming up very soon, we are going to release some info on our Kickstarter that we'll be running a campaign to pre-sell tickets, and hopefully we'll sell it out there. So as soon as that is official and we've got the date that's going to launch, I will be back to let you know. But the first thing you can do is go to facebook.com/MoonCityCon and like that page and get the updates on it, and you'll be the first to know. Also on Twitter @MoonCityCon. You can check that out as well for all updates, and we'll keep you abreast of anything and everything that changes from here on out. But the date is set for September 6th through the 8th for 3 days this time of fantastic gaming. It is a gamer's con. It is about coming to play games, win games, and have a good time.
Play more games.
Play more games. Not a lot of events and nonsense. It's just there'll be some tournaments, but it's all about playing games, about getting together and having that time cut out just in a nice place, a really cool place to just play with like-minded people. So,
and Catherine's cookies.
That's right. We'll get the cookies. It might be a stretch goal for some cookies. I'm not sure what the rules on Kickstarter are for food, but she's definitely looking forward to baking some cookies for y'all. So be there or be square, September 6th through the 8th. Stay tuned for Kickstarter updates coming soon. All right, babe. So those are the games we've been playing lately. Now let's get on to a couple of more games we've been playing. Games that I have been working on designing, and you've been helping me develop them. And
yes, sir.
So we've talked about a few things like this before. Kind because anybody that plays board games as a creative person, they always think that, I can do this too. I think that about everything. That's why I've learned so many things half-assed in my life, because I think I can do that, so that's why I picked up the guitar when I was 18 years old and way too old to start learning it.
But you learned it and you're great at it.
I did, but it took me, and like that, it's like I had to do this thing with music where when I was about 28, I said, if I'm not playing in a band by the time I'm 30, then I'm going to quit stressing about music so much, because I was putting so much time into recording my own stuff and writing music and stuff, and I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere because I didn't have I didn't really have the experience and stage presence to go up there by myself and perform. But I did. I pushed through and I did a little bit, and then all of a sudden I got hooked up with a couple people and had a really fun time for about 5 years playing music, and going around playing all over the place.
We had a kid.
And we had a kid, and that kind of fell apart. But that wasn't it. It was because having a band is a pain in the ass. So I came to the conclusion that I was better off just going and playing by myself for a while. And I did that for a while too, and I still do that occasionally, but schlepping your shit around all by yourself sucks too. But putting that little caveat on it, and that little ultimatum to yourself of being like, shit or get off the pot. Do something with this thing you care about, or quit acting like you care about it so much.
Sure.
I have those urges. As a creative person, I've talked about this with you before. I always feel like the world is waiting on me to do this thing that I should be doing. Like if I'm not working on something, I feel like I'm letting these mysterious people that don't really exist down. You know what I mean? I feel like the world's expecting so much out of me, when the truth is it's all me. I'm expecting myself to do something that people like. Nobody else is, but I feel this weird outside pressure, So sometimes putting that internal pressure on yourself helps. And so I thought about that with board games, because I messed around with design before, and I put way too much effort into prototypes that don't go anywhere, and you
just stop them.
Well, what happens is I lose interest in that game. The longer that it sits on the shelf and I don't do anything with it, or the longer I stay away from it, the less I care about that game. I move on to some other new idea. So I did an ultimatum with myself this time. I'm about to turn 39. And I said, I either want to get a game published by the time I'm 40, or I want to just not worry so much about that and just sit back and enjoy games that other people make. I don't have to do everything just because I think I can, There's plenty of designers. They don't need me. The world's not waiting for me to design the perfect game. But in the meantime, I'm pretending like they are.
Well, it's not that the world doesn't need you. You really enjoy it. You enjoy the process. You enjoy the creation. I enjoy hearing you talk. You get so excited. Like you're only halfway through this last one that you're working on, and you're already thinking about the next one.
That's the problem.
Like already. And so, and you were talking about the next one last night, and I didn't want to say, slow your roll, dude. We're working on this one.
You need to say that to me.
Slow your roll, but I admire that you're like that. Like I don't have anything like that makes me so excited with that creative juices. Like, and it just flows out of you constantly.
But it stresses me out too. So like not having that, I sort of wish I didn't have it, because it put, like I said, it puts stress on me that's completely unfounded stress. You know what I mean? But I get what you're saying. I get worked up, and that's my thing. I'm always like, you're always looking ahead in life to things. I'm always looking ahead to like, what's the next project thing I can do? And when I'm in the middle of, like, when I get over a hump of something, like when it becomes real, like these two prototypes, that's almost when they start to slip from my priorities, which I got to not do.
Oh.
So all that to say this, there's two games that I'm working on right now that I'm really focusing on. One is much lighter, much faster playing family style game. Let's talk a little bit about that one right away. So that one, I started out with the idea of it being called A Life Worth Living. And this game came from the idea of this one mechanic that I thought of, which was, and here, we'll put a caveat on this whole thing. I'm putting all this out here because if somebody tries to steal my idea, I'm pointing to this exact episode, and I'm also going to put it. I'm going to be putting all this stuff out in a video blog on our YouTube page. I'm kind of chronicling and videoing the steps of making these games because that's the easiest way to do with video games. You can't copyright them, or excuse me, board games. You can't copyright them, so the ideas, all I can do is put them out there to let people know I'm working on them. And then if a game comes out, 6 months from now that is exactly like the games I've been talking about, then I'll point to that and go, look, people, don't buy this asshole's games because he stole my idea.
Exactly.
So don't steal my idea, assholes. So this card game, A Life Worth Living original idea came from this mechanism that I had of choosing cards based on having a grid of cards out on the table, and you have basically a meeple or a pawn or whatever, and you would place it on a card, but you'd have to take a card that surrounded one of the cards surrounding that card instead of taking that card. And then every turn you must move that meeple to a different one. And that's what the whole mechanism was based on. And so therefore, by placing it on that card, you're reserving it because no one else can take the one that your meeple is on. And that's all I had. And I thought about this for a long time for the whole bunch of different types of games. And then basically what it turned into was that mechanism, and basically a rummy style game where you're trying to claim cards in order to make runs, 1 through 10 of different suits in your own little tableau. And then I also added in a spatial relations thing where each suit of cards has half of a symbol on each side of the card. And they can be turned and manipulated and moved in that grid in order to combine like symbols and make a full symbol, which will create this gem on there. These gems can then be claimed when you take the card that it's connected to, and then you can use these gems for special actions throughout the game in order to move the cards more, to steal cards from other people's tableau, to do all these different actions. And this game came to me, I design in my head. I'm not one of these people that I probably don't do it right. I've always heard that the best thing to do is get it on the table as fast as possible and start playing it and then figure out what's wrong with it, make a paper, a sloppy paper drawing and go from there. That probably is best. But what I tend to do, since I have a lot of free time during the day, is as I'm walking around, I think these things out and I come up with ideas. And by the time I start to make my prototype, I pretty much got the game figured out in my head, and I just hope it works. Now I've because of doing that a few times before, I've realized that the more complicated your game is, the less likely that is to work in the end when you put it down, right? So this game was very simple.
Just more tweaking.
Yeah.
It needs.
This game was very simple. So I thought, it'll work. And so I did I didn't print out pretty cards or anything. I just used some Uno cards Phase 10 cards because they had the numbers that I needed, and, did it like that. And lo and behold, the damn thing works.
It works.
And we've added stuff to it and taken stuff away from it, but no matter how we play it, it works.
It's a quick little party game. And
there's going to be one more layer added onto it for sort of Splendor-ish, where there's goal cards out there where you can turn in certain, discard certain cards of certain suits, or use their gems to get, scoring cards that are out there. But that's really it, other than just making the runs and scoring the runs. And so this is very light, but I can see, again, this is a kind of game that I can see with beautiful artwork put on it. I can see it like Renegade Games or somebody like that being interested in a game like this, because it's got some thinking, it's got that spatial relations, and it's quick playing and, easy to produce. Yeah. It's just a deck of cards and some gems. Yep. That's it. So,
but it was fun. We played that with Steven too.
Yep. We played it several times with, and it just works. It's just it. It's just nothing. It's not a brain burner, but
the sliding function is
moving the cards around.
Moving the cards up and down.
I think that's cool, and that's why the only thing that I'm not sure about on that one is whether it's going to need a board. We never played it with a board, and I don't really think you need it. And it would probably be better if it never did, but it'd be a little more
being able to keep it in.
Yeah, it'd be easier box for the grid to work. More
so you don't go down too far or whatever.
Yeah, but as it is, it's like it can only get so big. You know what I mean? So we've been able to contain it on our table, and it's never gotten out of hand. So you may not really need a board, but that would be kind of up to a company. But see, I'm not interested in self-publishing. I don't want to do a Kickstarter. If a company was interested in it and they want to run the Kickstarter,
By
That's
all
cool.
means.
But that one's going to be pretty soon ready to send out. I'm going to do some initial artwork to put on the different things. Oh, but what the biggest thing on that one is, my idea for the theme was the life worth living. So each set of cards, each suit has, so for like right now it's phase 10. So there's a blue, a red, a green, and a yellow, right? There's 4 suits, and each one has 2 sets of 10 in each color, right? I like that number, and that all those, the math of it works, right? So, and the shapes that are on there that you're trying to connect, all the numbers all work out. So I want to keep that idea, the two sets of each suit. And so what I thought was like to have artwork on a card of like the number 1 card would be your birth, to the number 10 card would be your death of this, and like have different themes of lives on the cards, right? You know, starting from when you're a baby till you grow up, and different things would happen through your life on the different cards. And have, you know, a fantasy one and a modern one and a future one and you know, those kind of things. But maybe that would still be cool. But the amount of art that would necessitate,
And that would take a lot of art.
that would be,
And that
40,
kind of changes it from a fast, easy playing card game to this is like an actual, like that. I feel like,
I think it could be done exactly the same, but just
I
have
feel
really
like
cool
if you were
artwork.
going to use that really cool artwork, then you would want the board. You would want all the extras.
maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe. But that would be 80 individual pieces of art that you would need, you know, 20 per artist.
That's a
maybe
lot.
At least 10 per artist. And that would get expensive. That would get, you know, I don't know. It just may be prohibitive. But I may use that idea in some other game. But so I changed the idea to, I listened to this really shitty book called The History of the World as Told by the Secret Societies, and it made my eyes roll so hard that I think I sprained one of my cortexes or something. It basically was a stupid book about metaphysics and all the weird religious shit that like the Masons believe and stuff like that. But the one thing I did get out of that was there was a lot of cool words in it and made up, mythology. So I decided to maybe change the theme to call it esoterica. And that just means you can do anything you want. You can make up symbols and all this other shit and make it sort of new agey, cool, you know, like abstract artwork sort of, and make those all fit together, you know? So like when you lay that out from 1 to 10, it's going to, you know, make a little tableau, make a little drawing or a little, you know, art piece, but very abstract and very weird.
I think that name way better suits the actual feel of the game, because you're connecting the two half symbols to make a full symbol.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving and sliding the cards around, making a different piece of art. You know what I mean? I think that's a perfect name for it.
I do think it fits better. So that's what I'm going with now. And then that way I can do the preliminary art and do some abstract stuff, and, you know, it'll be fine. And then if a publisher likes it, then they'll do whatever they want with it. You know, I don't really care about the theme of this game, honestly. That's why I think this game is about the mechanisms.
Yes.
And it's not about the theme.
I agree.
But
however,
then the second game, yes.
The next one is all about the theme,
It's all about the theme. So I've had this idea for a while too, but I didn't know how to go about doing it. And all of a sudden I got like, oh, this is the kind of game this game needs to be. So it's called Houdini versus the Spiritualists. So years ago, I read my first Houdini biography, and I've been pretty interested with this dude on and off again to varying degrees for years and years and years. And so I read another book called The Witch of Lime Street, which was about the most interesting thing to me about him that most people don't know. You know, he was an escape artist and all this from the late 1800s onto the 1920s. The most famous magician in the world for years and years and years. But also towards the end of his life, his mission became to debunk fraudulent spiritualists. That's what he did. That was a giant movement from the late 1800s or mid 1800s all the way through the 30s even, there was this tipping point where most of the Western world was very close to just accepting that ghosts were completely real and that you could communicate with the dead, because there were so many of these mediums and spiritualists that were in business convincing people that it was real. And they were magicians, they were tricksters, and they were very good at fooling people into believing these things, these seances. And now I'm saying I don't believe any of that shit, right? But Houdini's take was, it's not that I don't believe that. He actually wanted to believe. One of his big things was he wanted to contact his mother, and he wanted to be able, that was his mother. He was a big mama's boy, you know. When his mom died, it was crushing for him. And that's what got him into the spiritualism, was the people were telling him that he could really contact his mother, even though early on in his life he worked as a fraudulent one. Early in his career, him and his wife were fraudulent mediums, and they would put on medium shows, and he quit doing that because he saw in people's eyes that, oh, they really think that they're talking to their dead relatives. And I feel terrible about that because it's not real and I'm making it up. And I thought that it was, not hurting anyone, but turns out it really is affecting them because they're only talking to me. They think they're talking to their dead son or whatever, That is the most interesting part of this guy's life to me. So I decided to make a game about it. Well, the game turned into how would you describe it? So it's a drafting, bluffing, deduction game.
Yeah. That's a good way to describe it.
It's ideally going to be a 2 to 4 player, maybe even 5 player game. I've thought of a way to give the Houdini player a thing, but it's more of a 1 versus many. So 2 versus 2 is the way that we've played it mostly and the way it's tested out a lot. But I'm confident that the 1 versus 3 will work fine. And I'm thinking of a 2 versus 3 version.
Really?
Where I'm going to bring Sherlock Holmes into it.
What?
And he will be going against Arthur Conan Doyle. Because here's the big rivalry in the spiritualism versus the anti-spiritualism movement were Houdini on the anti-spiritualism movement and Arthur Conan Doyle on the spiritualist movement. Because late on in his life, he went batshit with this stuff and was just convinced by every 2-bit medium that came along that it was all real, and he really hurt his legacy by buying into all this shit and becoming so into it. And him and Houdini were friends, and then it became bitter enemies towards the end because they just kept throwing each other under the bus over this shit. And it's even rumored that when Houdini died, it might have been a hit put out on him by the Spiritualist Society. So, because he died from getting punched in the stomach, which he used to let people do, but the guy who punched him in the stomach had ties to spiritualism and stuff. So it's not known whether it was like on purpose, tried to hurt him. But anyway, so in the game, let's talk about the game, babe.
Okay.
You talk.
So the board is the table where the mediums and Houdini sit and try to conjure up ghosts and spirits.
Yep.
Yes, the seance table. The mediums are one player and Houdini is another player. So the mediums is where there's an opportunity to have 1, 2, or 3 different players playing the mediums. Houdini, until I just found out right now, is a 1 player. So you get 3 different what's the name of the spiritualists,
mediums.
right? Mediums. And they have their own powers. So they have, it's just shuffled, there's several different options of them. And so you get these special powers. Houdini has a board. He's got 3 or 4?
3.
3 different powers himself. But he only gets the same 3 powers, where the medium gets shuffled, and we get different powers each game. So you draft cards. So the first 2 cards you don't show the other person. And then the additional 4 cards you draft back and forth. After you draft back and forth, the Houdini gets to draw 3 mediums. Sitters. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm getting the words mixed up.
So basically, the idea is there's like a super seance happening where the spiritualists have challenged Houdini. They're going to come in and they're going to say, come in and disprove us.
Yes.
And they're going to bring in 1 person that's an outsider and 3 people, which is what they used to do. They're basically, Houdini probably thinks he's up against just the 1 medium, but actually there's 3 of them in the room, and then there's 1 person that doesn't have anything to do with anything. And that is the sitter. And they're the ones you're trying to impress for bonus points. So continue.
So yes. So Houdini gets to discard 1 of the 3. And then the other 2 are given to the mediums. And then we get to choose, the mediums choose which one we're actually going to use. And so what that is there's powers on the bottom of them.
Well, the phenomenon types, yeah.
The phenomenon types. So there's different types. There's, I'm going to name them all wrong. But anyway, so there's always 2 or 3 different options. And the whole point is the cards that you have drafted are those different types. And so you're wanting to bluff and get the higher number on those specific types based on the card that was chosen. So as Houdini, when you hand over those 2 cards, you're trying to memorize what options were on those two cards, even though you don't know which one's actually getting picked. And so, and as the medium, knowing that Houdini is going to try to remember that, you try to bluff. And so it's all bluffing, and it's
memory and bluffing.
And then, so as whoever wins, let's just say whoever wins that specific symbol, the loser gets points based on the difference. So if the winner gets 7 points and the loser lost, you only got 4 points. So the loser gets 3 points. So it becomes a matter of trying to think, okay, am I going to lose big or am I going to win big? Because if I'm going to lose big,
or am I going to win small?
Oh, am I going to
win small? Really?
Because I don't want the other person to be able to get the difference in points. So if I lay down a 7 and they lay down a bluffing 1, that means they're going to get 6 points. And so you have to try to strategize and figure out, okay, either I'm going to win really big and screw them in points, or I'm going to bluff and move columns over. There's so many different options on how to make points and screw thy neighbor. This is a lot of screw thy neighbor points in this game. But it's so, and then you have to, depending on what cards you play, you have to alter the window. Is it dark in there? Is it light in there? Because obviously the mediums want it to be dark so that they're hiding all their behind the scenes crap, and Houdini wants it to be light so that he can see all of their tricks that they're trying to hide, so that's a whole different option, a whole different,
about you're adjusting the window. Basically, like there's drapes, and basically if you can change the light cube, there's 2 light cubes and 2 dark cubes, and if you fill it up with dark cubes, it starts out one way or the other, which determines first player. And so it gives an advantage, but then it also lets the other person go last, the person who doesn't have that advantage, which is a big advantage. Going last is a big advantage because you can react to the last thing they did.
And it's based on the wild card that's drawn when you're drafting cards. So, it's not like, oh, well, this person goes first. No, it's solely based on whatever is said on the wild card.
So all 3 rounds I could go first, but so I'll get that advantage of the light or dark, but you'll get the advantage of going last every turn, which is arguably a much bigger advantage than the light or dark. But I think it's big on both, because if you don't have that dark, then I could give you the 7 cards. If I don't think you're going to like the number 7 cards, I'll take the light or dark prerequisite. And so there's a whole thing about believe me, I'm writing the rule book for it right now, and it's confusing as hell to explain. Now, once you've seen it played, or once you play it once, I think it makes perfect sense. But trying to explain it on here, Leander did a great job, except for you still don't even know what you're doing in the game. You're like you're playing cards. It's sort of a card-based area control. You're playing cards, these 5 different type of phenomena on the board, and each one, is there 5 or 6? There's 5, right?
There's farts, there's balls.
Writing. These are her pet names for them all. So there's spirit writing, there's spirit
music,
speech,
writing,
there's
farts,
music,
balls, and fire.
Wait, you got me confused. Anyways, so there's 5.
Farts, balls, fire, music, and writing. There's 5.
Yeah, it's 5. So you're trying to play down into these columns on your side, and she's playing down into those same columns on her side, and then you evaluate who won by the numbers on the cards. Plus, each card has a special ability on it, so it can be played face up for that special ability. There's also a track that has to do with public opinion, and if you get it all the way to your side, you win the game immediately. It's also a tiebreaker, so if it's just on your side a little bit, you got the tiebreaker. If it's on your side all the way, you win. We've never seen anybody win like that, but it's something you have to watch for, because you can put the pressure on the other player to spend their cards to move that instead of playing it down into the columns that they want to play it into. I really am happy with this game. I think this game, as a 2-player game at the very least,
it's a solid 2-player game.
Getting the multiplayer to work well,
we're still messing with it.
I think it will work. My idea of the multiplayer version was sort of like the Mind, or the game where you have to not talk to coordinate, but kind of get the feel of what you're trying to do. So what would happen in there is that you would hand over the entire deck, or your entire hand, to whoever's turn it is, but then whoever is the medium player for that turn, they'll be called the cabinet medium, and they'll have a token that shows they're the one in the cabinet. Which we didn't even talk about that there's worker placement on there. There's everybody has a seat at the table.
Cubes to play certain cards in your hand.
Those are the like the equipment that they're using, that the mediums are using, and Houdini has to do it
Singing hot balls.
Nobody understands what you're saying. But if you see the artwork, if you go to our Instagram or whatever, you'll see like my speech icon that I put for ghost speech. It's like a comic. It's a comic speech bubble, but it's all wiggly, and so she says it looks like a fart. And then there's for the fortune telling symbol is just a crystal ball. So when you're trying to memorize these things, it does help to be like, okay, so taking pictures of hot farts.
Oh, with the pictures. So there's 6.
There's 6.
We forgot pictures.
There's 6. I thought there was 6. But anyway,
so yeah, I'm making a little saying like that really does help. But the thing is I have to not sing it out loud
because then I know exactly what she's picking. So there's a worker placement aspect because every seat at the table, there's 3 medium meeples, and then there's one, and Houdini has actually 4 little action discs. So Houdini has potentially 1 more action, but each one of the mediums can potentially take 2 actions. So they will move over, and there's 3 spots to get resources, 1, 2, or 3 resources depending on the spot. There is the moving your meeple onto your special actions as the mediums and as Houdini. Houdini then can block spots. The mediums can block spots too. But after you've moved a medium meeple over to somewhere, you can choose to either take a section action with it and lay it down, meaning that it can't move anymore once it's laid out, or move it back to the table, in which case you're going to get points for every medium that didn't leave the table, so it's still standing at the table, and you will lose points for every medium that's not back at the table, because the whole idea is you're supposed to be keeping control and not breaking the circle the whole time. So if you get up in the middle of the thing and you're on an action space because you took double, then the lights come back on at the end of the seance, everybody's going to know some shenanigans happen because you're not even at the table. Plus, Houdini can use his action disc to either get resources to do his special actions or to put his at the spot where you left the table. So at your chair, Houdini can mark it, and he'll get a point for each time he does that because he is saying, hey, look, you got up. Because that's one thing they would do. If they knew somebody got up, Houdini would lean over and mark their chair with a piece of chalk. And then when they sat back down, he'd go, oh, I'd like you to check your chair there. Has it got a mark of chalk under it? Yeah. Well, that's because I marked it when you got up in the middle of this thing, So there's a lot of stuff that I've tried to tie thematically into it to do with seances, I don't know. There's a lot going on in this game.
So wife's turn here for a husband brag. I am blown away at the awesomeness of what he's created. So like the back of the medium cards, the artwork themselves, the back of the medium cards are little Ouija boards. There's screens that you put out that he's created that have everything's perfectly history related. So the screens all have not decoration, but artwork on them that he's created. The back of all the cards, the back of the little drafting cards is the little what's that thing called? Yeah, that thing for the Ouija board. Like everything has artwork all over it. The people that are sitting are real people. The mediums were real mediums, like that he found, and then they're all
mediums that have been debunked by Houdini.
By Houdini. So like everything that's in there, the people that were used in his artwork that he's then just juiced up a little bit more to make it even more awesome, is real. So in the whole premises of the game is real history. So
the premises?
Well,
the premise.
Sorry, is real history. So as a game player, I appreciate the game in itself because it's a solid 2-player game. As his wife, I look at it and I'm like, holy shit, my husband just made this. Like, my husband just freaking made this game. Like, he ordered a player mat for it and it came in yesterday, and I didn't wait for him to get home. I opened it myself because I wanted to see it.
It looks good, man.
It looks awesome. Like, he has a fucking mat. Like, he made a fucking board game. Like, I'm so proud of you, and it's a fun board game. Like, yep. Proud wife.
Thanks, baby. Well, I tend to do that, and I think there's 2 schools of thought on that. I tend to go way overboard when it comes to prototypes, but here's my feeling. If I'm running a company and I see a whole bunch of prototypes, right? Well, I'm not obviously going to think that a game sucks because it's it's done on index cards or whatever, and it's all marked up in a marker, because I've seen it before and I've seen good games come out of that, right? They know the process. They know, and they've probably seen really pretty games come in that turned out to play like shit, right? But if you've got a good game and you put a good coat of paint on it, then how can they not like that? You know what I mean? Like, so I really feel like we have a good game.
Didn't you already put this on Twitter and someone already said something?
I did. Well, I was inspired to make this game because of Tesla versus Edison by Artana Games and the Tesla versus Edison duel that came out, because they do these. So I thought this is a natural fit for that company. So I just, when I got the first initial artwork for the board done and stuff, I put it out there and I'm like, really liking this prototype so far. It's time to playtest. And I said, I know who I would like to pitch it to. And I tagged Artana, and the creative director of Artana tweeted back and said, hey, I love the theme. So whenever you're happy with it, send it my way.
That's so exciting.
So that's good, and I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to accept the game.
But that's still really exciting.
They are the company that I had in mind.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to put all my eggs in my basket. And I don't want to insult any other company, because if anybody else wants to publish it and they're willing to give it its due and put the effort behind it that I think it deserves, then by all means we'll do it. But I honestly am going to give them the first crack at it, because I think it fits with their line of games. They've got Tesla versus Edison. They've got the New Science. Games. They've got Lovelace and Babbage. They've done this before and they know how to do it. So, who knows? I mean, you don't want to say, yep, and Artana's going to publish my game when they barely said that they're interested in looking at it. No. But I hope they do.
I hope so.
I would love for Stonemeyer to publish, but I don't see it fitting into their oeuvre. Someday I've got an idea for a game that I want him to look at.
That one wouldn't do good.
But you have to know the room when you're pitching games. That's one thing that I've been told is, like, why would you take this game to that company? Obviously they're not going to like it. You're sort of wasting their time, even if they give you good feedback. Like, if I was to send this game to Jamie, I would be wasting his time, because he's not going to accept it, and maybe he'll like the game even and give me good feedback.
It's not his type
but it's
of
not
game.
His thing, and his job is not to play test my games and give me feedback. Send it to a company that you think might actually be interested in doing something with it. So and that may not be great advice coming from me, the person who's never pitched a board game in their life.
But it makes sense. He doesn't do that type of game. So it makes sense that you wouldn't give a history themed type of real game like that to Jamie.
But, also there's something to be said for a company that doesn't have that type of game yet. If they do all kinds of games and they don't have that type of game yet, there's something to be said for that. But like I said, he's got stiff rules on his things. It's got to play 1 to 5 players. Yeah. This doesn't play 1 to 5 players necessarily. So, that's another thing to start thinking about. You can work hard on a game, and then you have to figure out, well, who would want this, and how do I get them to take it
out there?
So my whole plan is I'm going to do we talked about it now. And then if you guys want to check it out, go look at Instagram, Facebook, you'll see pictures of it in its various forms. And I'm going to do a video blog, like a designer diary, little YouTube video about it, where you can see me making some of the prototype and stuff, and creating some of the artwork and stuff for the board and the cards and stuff. I'm going to put up something like that, so you can see it kind of from its infancy, and you can also see how much I design in my head, because honestly, a lot of this game was done in my head. And the way I figure it is, you make a good prototype, and then if the rules need to be tweaked, they need to be tweaked. But here's your sandbox and here's your toys. Now figure out how to play with them. So to me, it's like, just give me a box full of shit and I'll figure out how to make a good game out of it. You don't need to.
We have to play this game more with
multiplayers, because that's going to be a lot of ironing out.
We've only played one time, and my bad, I wasn't feeling well, so I wasn't the most supportive.
Lee poisoned the well on that one.
I wasn't very supportive. I was kind of hurting. It was like 4 days after surgery, and I was a little bit grumpy, and so I was like, meh, boo, I like a bit better 2-player, and I just like...
Yeah, she was immediately like, well, I can tell you right now that this is no fun. I'm like, well, shit, you haven't even played one hand yet. But, there were some things that came out of that playtest that needed to be said. Yeah. But you really crushed my...
I know I did.
You really said fuck your dreams on that one.
I know I did. I'm sorry.
But no, it needs to happen. And that's something that we're going to talk about as far as design goes. Like, criticism. Like, I have another game that I worked on about called Rolling Ice, which is about being cavemen and stuff. And I really put a lot of work into it. And I got to say that even when I was done, I was like, there's something needs to change in this game. And I'm not sure what it is. But it was a very big, complicated game. And I was like, something about it's just not fun, you know, and couldn't put my finger on it. And I took it out into the wild and I played it with a couple people, good friends of mine that I really trust their stuff, and they're not afraid to tell you what they think. And they were like, look, this part is no good. There's something good in this game. There's stuff that's fun, but this part here is no good. And there's this part here. There's too much going on in this game for what it is. He's like, they're just like, there's just too much going on, and it doesn't work together well. You need to pare down some of these mechanisms and make them all work together better. And they were not wrong, you know. And since then I've thought about it, but also I'm like, I don't want to go back and retool this game, you know. So there's something to be said about having something that you feel very passionate about, that you know is the way that's your vision. Like, that's how I feel about this game. I feel like the rules can be tweaked, but the soul of the game is pretty simple.
I think you need to go back to the. I mean, once Houdini is done, because I love this game. You need to go revisit the '80s game again.
Yeah,
because that one was an awesome concept, awesome theme. It's going to turn out good. You just got to make it happen.
It's big and huge, though, and sprawling, and it's a legacy type thing, and
that's a Jamie kind of game.
So hard. Yeah, I know, but that's so hard to do, and I got out of my depth on that one, but
it was it was like a Stranger Things theme in the 80s with school and the kids and the bikes, and the player boards were like the old fashioned watches, like what we had. Trapper Keepers and the 80s watches, and it was all 80s stuff. And it was super fun.
And again, that's a game that I've got. The bones are there. The game is there. The player boards, the mechanisms are there. It's about writing the story and everything. That's where I fell off. It was just because trying to figure out how to tie all that together and make it work was daunting. I got to come up with a simpler way to do that. That's the thing, is like the more complicated I get, the more I realize the depth of games don't come by adding another symbol or another thing. It comes into what makes a game great and elegant and fun to play is whenever there's a lot of things that can be done in a simple way. And that's what I got to figure out how to do with that game. So, and I don't know, game design is all new to me. Hopefully in a year, we won't be talking about this as a fantasy. It won't be like, oh, Ben's got this pipe dream. It'll be that Ben's games get published and then we can talk more about it.
Freaking awesome, babe.
There's some guys on Twitter that I've looked into that are just gamers that design their own games. And one of them, his name is Jason Dinger. He's a great follow on Twitter, a great guy. He gives away free games all the time. He's just a nice dude. He does woodworking, makes dice trays and stuff like that. Very interesting dude from New Orleans, and him and his wife just designed a game because they wanted to have a game that they want to play together. You know, he designed a Euro game about where he's from. It's called Captains of the Gulf, about being a fishing boat in Louisiana, and he got it published this year, and it just came out, and it's big time. People love it. I mean, it's sold out everywhere. You can't get it because it hasn't been published in the U.S. yet, but all the copies that were allocated to the U.S. or in Canada are all sold out. And so this guy was sitting there not even having a copy of his own game yet for a couple of months while people were playing it overseas in Europe, and he hadn't even got a copy. And people were in Essen playing his game in Germany and being like, we love this game and all this. And he still hasn't even got a copy of it.
That's super cool.
So there, it does happen. You know, people go from the table to designers all the time. Why not me?
Why not, baby?
So that's our little game design corner.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we'll be talking a little bit more about it as it goes. But check our YouTube page. Please go subscribe to our YouTube page and our channel, and you'll be seeing some stuff coming out about this, and you'll be able to kind of see the process. And then also you can check out some pictures on Instagram and our Facebook. So that's it for that. Let's move on to the Meeple of Madness Music Minute, where Leandra does not have a choice.
I don't have a damn thing, y'all.
Says, I haven't been listening, damn it.
I've been, inventory at work and yada yada. So no, I've been watching a lot of Downton Abbey.
Yeah, let's give your favorite Downton Abbey. Okay, let's talk about the music of Downton Abbey. It has the blend. Every time it comes on, I'm like, damn, Lee's watching Game of Thrones or Westworld, because it's like a perfect melding of Westworld and Game of Thrones music. It fits with that show. Not at all. The music is so epic and it's like, yeah,
I love it.
It's totally Game of Thrones or Westworld. It's nothing to do with Downton.
This is the second time I have watched the series.
You hear that epic music, and then it comes on. It's like, "Hello, the ship is here. Get the dishes done," or whatever the hell they say. It's like, "Hello, the ship." That's stuck in my head. That I don't know.
Lady Mary.
Lady Mary. But God, that's the biggest soap opera I've ever seen.
Over and over again, because I keep on watching it.
All right, so now on to the Meeple of Madness Music Minute. All right, so Meeple of Madness Music Minute. Brought to you by me only, Meeple of Madness himself, at Meeple of Madness on Twitter. This is one that I thought about picking last episode, but I'm going to go ahead and put them out now. We're going to make this quick because this episode's going long. I'm going to put 2 clips out from this band. They're called Sheer Mag, and they're sheerly awesome. They are, that's spelled SHEERMAG. They are out of Philadelphia. The lead singer, Tina Holiday, is awesome. They are super pop punky, Riot Girl style music. I love it. It's this weird mix of punk with some like 70s power pop guitar stuff. Really, really, really fun stuff. And I love the way that they put all the reverb and effect on her voice, and just attitude, and some really cool hooks and melodies in their songs. So I'm going to play a clip of Fan the Flames. And then since Lee didn't have a pick, we'll do a bonus clip of Can't Stop Fighting. They've up till now only put out EPs. So I think they have 3 EPs, and they each have like 4 or 5 songs on them. So there's, 15, 16 songs out there that you can get of theirs, and all of them are good. So check out Sheer Mag. We'll listen to Fan the Flames and then Can't Stop Fighting, and then we'll move on to IRL. We're back, babe.
Hey.
Everybody's favorite part of the show. It's
IRL.
Pew pew.
Pew pew.
Okay, so we teased this a little bit in our last episode, and I don't know. Okay, here's the deal. We're going to tell you a little fable, a little what if. What if this happened? It didn't really happen, and it didn't involve us.
Nope.
And it didn't even involve anybody named the same names as us.
Nope.
Let's say that theoretically, on Halloween this past year, or the past month, excuse me, or some year in the past or future, some people went somewhere south of here for a zombie crawl, which is the idea that you're going to go get dressed up as a zombie and go on a little parade and have fun and get drunk and
have fun.
They leave their children behind. And these fictional people, we'll call them Bento and Ree.
Wait, I love bento boxes. Don't call bento.
Yeah, it's Bento.
Oh, okay.
Bento and Ree decided to go down there, leave their little child cardamom at home, and with some friends, and they go down there with some friends of theirs. We're not going to name them because I can't come up with any more names. And babe, turn the microphones off for a second. I got to tell you something.
Okay.
I'm afraid people are going to know that we're talking about us.
I think we got them fooled. Bento and reworks good.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So we're just going to keep going. Okay. Ready? Turn the microphones back on. Okay. So Bento and Ree head down south to go to the zombie crawl. And they're all dressed up awesomely, and they're all zombified, and they get down there, and they're having a good time. And we must say that they had quite the adventures that night. They jumped into the parade, and they did some stuff. They flashed some people.
Scared some people.
Scared some children, and everything was going great. And so they decided to go to a bar afterwards. It's one of their favorite bars in this area, and it happened to have a drag show that night. So they went to this bar to have a drink, and they didn't even go down in the drag show because it was expensive cover, and it was packed. And so they stayed in the outside pavilion area, right, where there was also a bar. And they began drinking a little bit.
It was still fairly early from what they said.
It was still very early from what I heard.
I don't think they were.
They weren't even that intoxicated, except for Ree was starting to drink liquid marijuana shots, and Ree was getting a little tipsy. But Bento was pretty in control at this point. And so a little skirmish began to happen outside on the street near the pavilion area that they were in. And it was a fella was pushing his wife and yelling and stuff, and it was brought to Bento's attention. And so Bento, being Bento, went out there and calmly told the guy to knock that off, and that wasn't going to be acceptable. And he said, "I didn't do anything." And I said, "No, you put your hands on her, and that's not cool, so just walk away, They were waiting on an Uber, I think, from what I was told. And that was the idea. And so then the girl says, "Okay, thanks. I don't think he understands he's not supposed to touch someone." And I'm like, Bento is like, "Yeah, that's not cool. You all right?" "Yeah, okay. Well, just as long as he stays over there, everything will be fine." Okay. So,
mind you, this is all hearsay.
This all allegedly happened to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so, Bento goes back, and we have a few more drinks, and more people are filing out of the drag show and coming out and getting pictures with some awesome drag queens and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, Bento hears the ruckus out in the parking lot next to the thing, and Ree points out that he's out there pushing her again. So he's over there yelling at her and pushing her. So Bento goes out, toxic masculinity flowing through his veins, and says, "Hey, motherfucker, I thought I told you to stop doing that." And this guy, at this point, had decided that Bento looked enough like a woman that he was going to get up into his face too. And because that's what this guy's style was. And so he gets into Bento's face and says, "This is my wife." And I said, "I don't give a fuck if it's your wife or who it is. You can't be doing that to her."
That's what Bento said.
That's what Bento says.
Yeah.
And so this guy had heard enough. And so he pushes Bento. Actually, he sticks his finger in Bento's eye and pushes out his contact, right? And so then Bento's in action, swings a wild haymaker because he can't see out of his eye, misses, and then dude comes back up for another push. The Bento can't see a damn thing, but swings another wild haymaker, and this time connects, and the guy goes down. So dude's on the ground crying for his glasses. Bento says, "Okay, job well done. Let's leave before the cops come." But
we didn't.
In the strangest turn of events of all time, Bento had been in bar fights before and had seen this happen. And, what happens is it doesn't matter whose fault it is, and it doesn't matter who's in the right. And it doesn't matter because bouncers usually come and tackle both people and kick them out and call the cops on them. This has happened before to Bento. He's no stranger to these sorts of things. And, but instead here at this establishment, the bouncer, who didn't do anything when this guy was doing this, tells Bento, "Good job.
I thanked him.
You guys are fine. It's their fault. Come back in." And so that was weird, Bento thought. Then Ree was getting into the act because I guess it was the sister of the girl who
was getting pushed
around and yelled at, was very intoxicated and was saying that it was somehow her fault and that
she was getting pushed.
That Bento and Ree should just mind their own business and stay out of it.
And then she proceeds to tell Bento that he's, all sorts of names and how he's a horrible human being because he was helping her to not get pushed by her husband. And Ree told her to stop saying those things to her husband, and she kept going. And Ree told her again to close her face and stop saying those things to her husband, and she kept on going. And so then Ree decided that her full glass of whatever was better off on said sister's face.
So Ree is surprised to everyone involved, throws a drink in her face. And then a girl fight ensues in which nobody got hurt like most girl fights.
No.
Hold on. And so girl didn't do anything at first. She kind of laughed and brushed herself off. Then as soon as people moved in to break them up because Ree is ready to throw down, then because Ree is an old hat at fighting too. Wink, wink.
Wink,
happens
wink.
all the time to her.
It does.
She's a big time brawler.
Mm-hmm.
So Ree's ready to go. And this girl says, until people come to break them up, then she starts trying to swing and stuff. But friend of Ree and Bento moves in to break up, elbows Ree in the nose.
Bloodies my nose. Bloodies Ree's nose.
Ree's nose begins to bleed. All the while, the owner of the place comes out to see what all's going on. And he's like, and the bouncer is trying to tell him that Bento and Ree are in the right and they were just helping out, but he is like mad because there's fighting happening at his two different fights at his club. By all rights, yeah, they should have kicked us all out. Bento and Ree should have totally got kicked out. But they were like, well, okay, sort of, but then they're like, but we're calling the cops because they're going to jail. They're not.
Apparently they were regulars and they caused trouble all the time.
We've had trouble with them before, so they're going to jail. And then so Bento hears cops and is like, yeah, that's finally the thing that we thought was going to happen is going to happen. So we're leaving because
they were.
Bento and Ree decided to move the party elsewhere, so they go down the road about a block or two and they find another bar and they post up there for the rest of the night. So now there's one interesting detail in this thing is that Bento and Ree both had beer goggles on that night, but upon further reflection, when we left, we talked to people that were there, and we. Now this doesn't change anything in my mind, but it came to be known that the wife of this guy, there's a possibility that she might have been a drag queen herself. Now that doesn't change my opinion.
The fact that she was being
abused, and no matter who she is, if they're married, then you can't be letting spousal
She was built like a brick house in a mini skirt and a corset and the whole 9 yards. She was beautiful.
She was gorgeous. Yeah, but regardless of whether she was I don't know.
That's what Ree said anyway.
If she was a trans, if she was a drag queen, whatever. To me, it all still stands the same. It is an interesting dichotomy in these days to think about something like that, to think, okay, if I saw two guys out there fighting, would I have cared or would I have let them do their thing? Or would I have said, there's one guy's obviously way bigger than this other person. You would have
stuck up for him.
So I probably would have.
You still would have.
So, but that was an interesting thing to look at.
Bento would have.
But Bento would have done that, absolutely. So it doesn't change a thing, but it also is an interesting point in the story that I think it might have been a drag queen husband fight that Bento and Ree were involved in.
May have been.
But so that is our dungeons.
I think the sister was a sister.
Yeah, the sister was a sister. So I don't know. So that was our Dungeons and Drag Queens encounter that we had. I think we were in the right. I think we got a lot of XP. Bento and Ree. Yeah. I think they got a lot of XP for that one. Now Bento and Ree are almost 40, and they really should not be doing things like that. It's not good, but Bento, for one, is sadly not the only time he sees things like this. In his job, he sees this kind of thing more frequently than he would like to. And there's one thing that Bento cannot not react to is when children or women, it's an old school mentality, obviously,
But it's a good
I have an
mentality.
immediate reaction that is just like Papa Bear protector mode on. And I mean, whether it's necessary or not, sometimes it just happens. And I have to
love
sometimes be like, maybe I saw that wrong, but Bento. So anyway, but Bento's almost 40 and can't be getting into bar fights anymore, but
At drag shows.
God damn it. But anyway,
Dress up as a zombie.
wearing a trench
No
coat.
one knew my nose was bleeding because I had blood all over my face.
You mean Ree?
Ray.
Yeah, just added to the blood all over Ree's already zombified outfit. Anyway, that was that. So that never really happened, but
No, that was just a story we
I
heard.
was just Bento and Ree. So what's been going on in actual IRL, Lee?
Well, I'll
with
make
you?
this short because I know we're running super long. After that, I went on my bucket list trip to Salem, Massachusetts to celebrate
So
Halloween
cool.
with my best friend.
So cool.
It was effing fantastic. I couldn't have asked for a better time. It was amazing. The weather, the trees, the people, the scenery, the houses, all the hocus pocus, fireworks on Halloween night at a rooftop hotel, our hotel. It was just the most amazing experience ever, and I effing loved it. And I'm sad that we didn't figure out to go to the little liquor store 4 streets down and buy those little things until 2 days after.
Oh, you guys were paying like $5 a drink?
Oh,
or
more
what-
than
or
that. $8-9 a drink.
For like a shot. You guys
For
said
just like a shot. Yeah. And so, the day after Halloween, the Halloween night, we found that little liquor store and we just loaded up my purse
With the little mini
of the
bottles.
little minis. That worked out so much better, so much cheaper. They were 99 cents instead of $8,
Yeah.
we paid $16 for 2 shots of Bailey's just to put in our coffee.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and they were 99 cents each at the liquor store. But anyway,
I heard you had a little stowaway with you too.
I did. Yes. Maurice traveled with me, and he got to take some awesome pictures in Salem.
So you got a squished down version of Flat Maurice,
I do,
right?
Flat Maurice. When I was young, I had a Flat Stanley in 5th grade or 4th grade. Took him with us, and we had to write in our journal about what we did with Flat Stanley. And so I told Ben, I travel a lot, so let's have a Flat Maurice. And so we turned him into an Instagram guy, and I think the best one though was farting in Salem.
Farting in Salem.
It was so awesome.
So perfect for Maurice.
It
right?
really was.
That was the best. So that was like, you couldn't top that one. So after that, she was like, yeah, I think I'm done with Flat Maurice. You got another pretty great Instagram photo there
I did.
too.
When I was in Boston, we were walking through the Boston Common, which is a beautiful, gorgeous park, on the way to Cheers Bar. And it's swamped with squirrels.
Everybody feeds them all the time. right?
Everyone feeds them all the time. And there was about 3 running around next to us, and look at the squirrels, and this one's getting closer. And I pick up my phone to take a picture of him by my foot, as Tracy has her phone to take a picture of him by my foot. And about that time, he jumps on my leg,
Crawled up.
crawled up my leg, and Tracy takes a picture. It is the best thing ever.
They have both angles. They have your angle and her
So
angle.
I have a picture from my angle down with Tracy using her umbrella to shoo him off of my leg. He smelled my Pop-Tart.
Your purse.
I had a Pop-Tart in my purse earlier that morning from a cafe in Salem, and he must have smelled
What
my
a classy
Pop-Tart.
joint you guys went to that had Pop-Tarts.
They were homemade Pop-Tarts.
Oh, okay.
They were really good.
Nice.
It was called the Brew Cafe, I think. Anyway, that place was so good. We went there like 2 times on our very short little trip. Anyway, he must have smelled
He was like,
the Pop-Tart.
bitch, feed me. What's
Feed
wrong
me.
with you?
Feed me.
Everybody else feeds us. What's your problem?
We finished our trip in Boston with going to Cheers, going for a massage, going for sushi for dinner, going back to the hotel in our pajamas, ordering room service for dessert, and drinking a bottle of wine.
Good Lord.
It was the most perfect best friend trip anyone could have ever asked for.
That's awesome. So glad you got to do that.
Me too. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Then you came back home and
came back home and make this story quick as well, because we already posted some of it on Facebook for my friends and family now that we know we're in the clear. We had a little bit of a scare of some blood counts that were up a little bit for possible ovarian cancer. Had some previous issues, and so the doctor decided just to do a full hysterectomy. And the pathology report came back, and there is no cancer. Which they can't really find that out until they get the hysterectomy. Like, that's basically the whole point of that is, listen, you've had problems in the past, and at your age, it's like, if you don't want any more kids, then this is the way to go to stop from having this problem in the future. And also, there's parts of your body, that lymph nodes and stuff, that could have cancer in them, and that we cannot tell unless we're already in there. So that's the reason for that whole thing. They couldn't, like, when they got in there, they were able to see that apparently I had pretty bad endometriosis in my fallopian tubes, and so they can't see that kind of stuff until they're in there. Yeah, you would think, like, here's the thing about modern medicine is, like, you think they know all this shit already, like, because they're so advanced and they can do this stuff, but honestly, we've been so many times now that I've realized that, like, MRIs and all these imaging things that they do and the CAT scans and all that, they can really tell them very little. Because it almost always seems like they're like, well, we can't really tell from that. So why did you just charge me $700? Yeah, we're going to do 2 or 3 of them, but the truth is we can't really tell. So the only way we're going to know is to get in there and do this. It seems like, no matter how modern medicine gets, it's like, cut them open. That's what it always ends up being. It's like, but I'm 2.5 weeks post-op and in less pain than I was before surgery already, even with having, surgery just right around the corner. And again, proud wife moment. This man took off work for a week and a half and stayed with me night and day, 24/7 for a whole entire week and a half. She was a nightmare. No, I'm kidding. He was wonderful. So anyway, that's my IRL. You're wonderful, baby. Why wouldn't I want to take care of you? Thanks, babe. I love it when I get a chance to pay you back for all the shit you do all the time. So I love you. Anyway, I love you too. So we're so glad that all that is behind us now. I mean, that's so if you've noticed that there's been a lot of break of everything that we're doing lately, it's because, I mean, we've done a lot. We put out 2 videos in the meantime and all that, but that was just stuff that was done in our spare time from all this other stuff. From the weekend before Halloween until now. We've done Salem. We've done a hysterectomy. We've done, it's just been so we have been doing things, people. We haven't fallen off the map, but now that that's all behind us, life hopefully will get back to some sort of normality. So we keep saying that with everything, and that never happens. Something always happens. This is our normal, I think. Our baby had her first pre-point ballet recital last night. Mommy cried like a little baby. Yes, her and her little best friend are the youngest kids in their ballerina pre-point class. That's the class where they learn how to get on their tippy toes to do ballet. Last night was their first recital in her pre-point class. She is the youngest in her class. It was beautiful. Yep, they did a really good job. It was just beautiful. There's some song that was like a World War II Christmas song. I never heard it before, but it was very tear-jerky. Oh gosh, I cried like a baby. I'm so stressed out when she's performing that I can't even think about it until it's over. She did beautiful. Yeah, she did great. All right. Is that it? I think we're done. That's IRL. Yes. All right. We're all still alive. Healthy. Bento and Ree still kicking it. Ree's nose hasn't quite been the same since. Oh, Bento did something else that night. Oh, you did? I mean, he did. We got back to the hotel. Wait, who? Oh, I mean, they got back to the hotel and Ree teasingly said, "You should jump in that pool." It's about 30 degrees out. 30 degrees. And he did. And he dived. Bento dived into the shallow end. The 3-foot shallow end and scuffed up his whole face. So Bento's lucky to be alive because, diving in a shallow pool is a way that people die. But not once, twice. Bento always dives shallow, just in case of that, because Bento's a fish. Bento dove and felt a little bump on his little forehead, and then Bento got out and was like, "Oh, I think I sandpapered my whole nose, nose and my forehead." The whole top of his forehead was completely gone, and the top of his nose. Lily had to do his makeup for the next because the video. Wait, who? What? I mean, what are you talking about? That didn't happen. Both videos were after we got back from Eureka. And Lily had to do Bento's makeup for the videos. That way you couldn't see the big sandpaper red mark on his forehead and his nose. And then that wasn't enough because then they dared Bento to go do it again. So Bento ran back out and dove into the pool again, but this time in the deep end.
Oh, God. Again, I remind you that Bento is almost 40.
Almost 40.
My God.
All right, we got to wrap this up. It's
Grow
very
up,
long.
Bento. Grow up. 'Cause there's very mature people around, and they don't have time for your kind of immature shit. I mean, one of the most mature people I know is walking across the table right now.
Yep, he is.
Flat Maurice, back
There he
from Salem, and he's got some words of wisdom for everyone.
Oh, does he now? I'm
bet
sure
he
he
does.
really does.
You
Uh-huh.
think he does?
No.
What's he doing? What's he doing?
He's gearing up.
He's tearing up because somebody can't find the stuff. Maurice, why are you being camera shy? Oh, there it is. That's the words of wisdom for the week. All right. That's it for episode 28. We'll be back next episode, hopefully sooner than later, with some such other things having to do with board games.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thanks for listening to episode 28 of the Not Safe for Work Placement podcast. You can check out all our stuff at www.nsfwppodcast.com, on Facebook, NSFWP Podcast, on Twitter at NSFWP Podcast. I am Meeple of Madness on Twitter. That is at Meeple of Madness. Leander is at Leander_30. And we'll see you next episode. Bye.